The subcommittee will come to order. When we recessed, it was Mr. McKinley's turn to be recognized. So with that, I want to recognize the gentleman from West Virginia for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Administrator, for coming, participating in this. Over the years, we'd asked your predecessor.
No, mine's up. Just come here.
Yeah, now it's back on. Now it's back. We'd asked your predecessors to come to, particularly as it relates to Section 321A, to see the impact some of the regulations we're having on in the coal fields, and they declined to do that. But I'm particularly appreciative of the fact that a week ago or 2 weeks ago, the EPA, you sent yourself, other folks came to West Virginia to get the impact of what these regulations are having. Because it's pretty clear in this statute that we have to abide by the economic impact. We have to take that into consideration when rules and regs are promulgated. They didn't do that. And I know you and I have had that conversation that you want to follow the law very clearly, and that I know a federal judge has already ruled that the EPA in the past considered them discretionary and not mandatory. I think your position, I've heard from you, is that you think they are mandatory, and you intend to abide by them. Am I correct on that?
Yes, Congressman, and we did, in fact, as you indicated, send representatives to West Virginia as part of the proposed withdrawal. And I do think it's important that that's a rulemaking process. You know, we've talked a little bit this morning about the withdrawal of the Clean Power Plan, and as I indicated earlier, that's primarily jurisdictional as far as the basis for that withdrawal, but that is a rulemaking process. And so that rulemaking process means that we go out and solicit and receive comment from across the country. We're not just going to be in West Virginia. We're going to be in Gillette, Wyoming soon. We're going to be in San Francisco. We're going to be in Kansas City. There's going to be a cross-current of viewpoints with respect to this issue, and it's important we hear all voices, and that process is ongoing.
Well, I think I particularly appreciate the fact that you sent people to the coal fields to understand the impact of what those regulations were doing when 86,000 coal miners lost their job during the Obama administration. And no one paid attention, no one came to those communities to find out what was going to be the impact of another regulation that was going to put them out of business. But part of the question is, have they been able to debrief you? What were some of the salient issues? What were the points that were raised at that meeting in Charleston?
Well, quite a few comments that were offered. It was multiple hours of information, and again, a cross-current of information that we're reviewing. And I think that, Congressman, you hit on some very important matters with respect to the cost of the Clean Power Plan that wasn't taken into consideration before, and that's something that came out in the process in West Virginia.
I know you've made a commitment. You said you're going back to blocking and tackling the fundamentals of rulemaking. Is there something that we should be doing here in Congress to make sure that we don't revert back to that old way of just following ideology rather than science? Well,
I think you know, there's some things that we've done recently that I think are very important to the process that I talked about earlier. I mean, for many years, the APA, the Administrative Procedures Act, that governs how we do rulemaking, has not been really followed as closely as it should. We've used guidance as forms of rules at times, which I think subverts the voices that need to be heard on substantive actions. We've engaged in litigation, regulation through litigation. We've talked about a sue and settle practice at the agency that literally has impacted state implementation plans across the country with air quality. And so there's much that we need to do to ensure that we respect that process and make sure that rulemaking is adhered to, the APA is adhered to as we're engaged in rulemaking.
In the timer, is there something you would suggest that, because that's been on the books that they're supposed to do that, but we saw 8 years where they did not follow that. Is there something that we should do to tighten up that?
Well, I think that any time that an agency, it's not just EPA, it's any agency of the executive branch that engages in litigation to change substantive requirements in a statute, you know, timelines that Congress sets or taking discretionary duties and making it non-discretionary as an example, that's something that should be dealt with by Congress. And I think speaking to that through codification is something that could be, I think it would be very helpful.
Okay, thank you. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back his time.